This is the How to Get Press Coverage panel. Really, it's designed to help independent publishers with anything that they don't understand about how to get some coverage and what we're looking for when we cover it and what we're not. And so we give a little bit of information up front about who we are and what we've done and all of that. But basically, we want to hear from you, find what you're looking for, what struggles you're having, and try and give you any help or point you in the right direction that we can. I worked for Archie for 11 years as their public relations coordinator, and I run my own website, and I've been doing comic news for 17 years, including for the Comic Buyer's Guide when there was a Comic Buyer's Guide. And so I'm going to pass it off to Josh.
My name is Josh Henneman, and I actually was in the audience for one of these about 4 years ago, doing a self-published book. I self-published it. It was called Bigfoot Sword of the Earth Man, and it was picked up by Action Lab. They started re-releasing all the 6 issues that I had done previously, and then I was asked to be on the panel.
Let me use the mic because I'm losing my voice. I'm Heidi McDonald. I am the editor-in-chief of The Beat at comicsbeat.com. I also edit graphic novel. I run the graphic novel review section for Publishers Weekly, and write for many different outlets.
Hi, my name is Alexander Raymond Palumbo. I own a small little news blog called Hollywood Gone Geek, and I'm also by trade a publicist for MonsterPR.com.
Hi, I'm Tanya Tate. I'm a cosplayer. I have a cosplay blog, just a lot of Tanya, so I review lots of different things from toys to comics. I have a YouTube channel where I do kind of like unboxing videos. I'm also a publicist. Could keep going on. Oh, and my work is syndicated by First Comics News.
Hi everybody, my name is Tim Chismar. I wish I had a cool accent like that, or at least an outfit like that.
No,
perhaps I said too much.
Don't we all? One of those things is easier than the other.
Yeah, I'm a writer, producer, filmmaker. I write for Fangoria, Icons of Fright, First Comics News, and I got a movie with a bunch of pro wrestlers coming out, so I'm very excited about that, and I'm happy that you guys came out to see us. Thanks, appreciate it.
Hey, my name is Mike Kingston. I'm the writer and creator of an independent wrestling comic book called Headlocked. When I started putting this together in 2008, just me selling my stuff in Artist Alley, and now we've had 4 trades, a bunch of wrestlers have contributed to it, and 3 successful Kickstarters.
Hi, I'm Francis Guy. I am a reporter for First Comics News and creator of the webcomic, The Massacre Twins.
And I'm Joshua Waldrop. I'm a writer, producer, and podcast host. Written for First Comics News, several websites, done PR and marketing, mainly in the professional wrestling industry, and co-writer of The Massacre Twins.
Okay, what we want to do here is to help you get your product packaged and sent to us. What we need to hear from you when you send us anything is why you're so excited about it. Because we can't relay that on to our readers if we don't feel that excitement from you. If we don't know what that hook is, what it is that makes your project so special. It's also a graphic medium. It doesn't help if you send us a lot of text and no images. Also, we're getting this by email. Don't send us a huge PDF of your entire book and every piece of art you've ever done that we can't download in a reasonable period of time or ever see on our phone. We need a little bit of art, we need a little bit of text, we need to know what it is, and we'll work with you, because our whole goal is to promote your product, to make your product seem cool to our readers. You need to be somewhere where you're close to actually completing the project when we say something about it, because if it's not available in previews, if it's not available to order, if it's not available online, it doesn't help anyone. Paul Castiglia and I are writing a book on the history of MLJ, and it's coming out from Tomorrows. And we've been working on this for 3 years, which seems like a long time to me. But we're just getting ready to be in the August previews, so we don't want to really kind of push that too much yet, because it doesn't help anyone if they hear about it, can't buy it, and they don't think about it, and by the time it comes around, no one wants to say anything. So your first market is going to be how you're going to get orders from it. If you're going to be in retail, if you're going to be in Diamond, you need to have press hit when the order comes in, because your real customer is the retailer, is the comic shop. Your customer is not really the end user, because they don't buy from you unless you're selling on your website. If you're selling on your website, you need to have your press hit at the time you have your product available to sell. Trying to get people excited about it earlier doesn't help unless you're doing a Kickstarter, and then you need to get people excited at the time the Kickstarter is going on. And Michael's done a lot with Kickstarter and successful projects, and I'm sure he can speak to what it takes to do a successful Kickstarter.
Yeah. One of the things that I've learned, I guess, over the years is just, you know, like I have one going right now, actually, cheap plug. But I did like a lead up to it, you know, I tried to get my audience conditioned to know that that's how, for us, that's like our pre-order, that's like our distribution method. So I did like a lead up where I would drop like a name and then like another name and, you know, little teasers and stuff, and I set it to a date. Like, we actually launched it from a panel at C2E2 last weekend, and I was worried because I wanted to make it like an event, but at the same time, weekends are notoriously bad for Kickstarter, so I tried to get people conditioned, like, we have some, you know, some specials for people that back early, but a lot of it was just building their expectations so they knew when the Kickstarter was going to drop, and, you know, to make sure that they got on early and to give them incentive to do so. So I think that just, you know, if you know who your audience is, like, which I think is the most important thing, is knowing who your audience is and where to find them, like, condition them and prep them for it, because it's a tricky thing for a lot of people. I mean, obviously for some people that are familiar with Kickstarter, it's not a big deal, but there's still a lot of people like, what's Kickstarter? So, you know, you have to sort of prep them and get them ready for it and make them understand, like, you don't have to pay right away, all of those things. So I think the amount of education that you can do for your audience is never enough. So it's definitely something that's to think about.
I think when we started, I was talking to Charlie right before the panel began, and I think maybe he's been doing this for 6 or 7 years.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And I think when you started, there wasn't even a Kickstarter.
I don't think there was.
Yeah.
I think also when we started, people weren't as internet savvy as they are now, just as a general rule.
Yeah.
And so people didn't really know what to send us, and we used to get horrendously huge emails.
Right.
And then emails the next day, why didn't you do anything with it?
Well, I think it's even that, you know, just to the time we started talking about this panel, like the first time I did this panel, I talked about exactly what Rick was just saying. It's like, you know, send some art, send that, and mostly it was people who were just trying to get press for their comic that they published. And now I'd say it's maybe 2/3 the requests for publicity I get are for Kickstarters. So you know, it's dramatically changed, and I mean, for me, it's like going through my email box is a Sisyphean task, and so it's almost like, you know, if it's a friend, I'll ignore it the first time, but then when the friend calls me on it, I'm like, oh crap, I gotta really cover that, you know, and it's hard. I mean, I just find, like, with everybody, it's like there's so much signal to noise now, and it's just become increasingly difficult, I think. Like, the game just keeps getting upped, you know? It's like everybody has to find new methods to cut through the signal to noise. And, you know, at first it was just, if you wrote a nice grammatical email with a cute image, oh, that was fine, because that stood apart from the pack. You know, now it's like people have their Kickstarter with their video, and here's their Twitter channel, and, you know, their brand of coffee, and you know, what Mike was saying is like, you know, you launched your Kickstarter on a panel. I mean, you know, it's everybody's game has been upped. So, I mean, I'm curious to hear from the panel, you know, how they deal with that.
How do you deal with that? How do you decide which Kickstarters are interesting to you and which ones aren't?
Well, it's very much like, my site does cover kind of mainstream stuff. You know, obviously I cover, you know, Marvel, DC, Dark Horse. I'm very personally interested in indie comics. So if somebody has a really interesting topic, that will catch my attention. I mean, if it's about vampires or werewolves, I'm probably not going to pay that. There's just so much of that, you know. And I mean, and that's what you were saying earlier as well. You really need to stand apart. I had one person send me an email about the Kickstarter asking, and then he followed up like maybe a week later, and for some reason I just looked at it and I thought, oh, you know, this guy's been really, really nice and about responding, you know, following up in a really professional way. And a lot of times some sites are just like, okay, just why don't you write about your Kickstarter for my site? So I said that to him, and it turned out, the book's called Pages, the guy's name is Sunny Singh, and it turned out that he is like, used to run social media for a huge website, so he knew everything about how to do social media, and he wrote a really good piece that I thought had really solid information. So that was a win-win, you know? He's an unknown in the comics world, and had, you know, my site has you know, profile of some kind, and so he got some publicity there, and I got a really well-written piece that had some really good information. So, you know, it's a trade-off in that way. And, I mean, that was just me kind of being like, I don't know, just something caught my attention. So it's kind of a je ne sais quoi. I really like that. I can't really tell. You know, if you have some beautiful art or just a topic, you know, there's another guy that did a comic. This wasn't for a Kickstarter, but it was about student loans. And I thought, you know, I haven't seen a comic about student loan crisis, so, you know, I wrote about that.
Speaking of the Kickstarter thing, and we opened up talking about something that Michael Kingston does very well, which is the Kickstarter campaigns that he does. I was thinking about this all day today because we've done this, a lot of us have done this panel a lot of times, and there's a lot of information that gets repeated, and it's all useful information. One thing struck me today that we haven't necessarily said because it seems overtly obvious, but if you look at Michael Kingston's graphic novel, Headlocked, you look at Josh's novel, Bigfoot, there's one thing they have in common, and it's something that I've noticed is more prevalent down on the floor, I think, than ever, is quality. That's the way to get your Kickstarter to stand out, is make it look top-notch, put the time and the effort and the money, the resources that you can, into making sure it is a professional-looking product, because there's a large number of people who will think, well, if I just want to get this done and get it out there, and they'll, you know, maybe chintz on the artwork, or they'll chintz on the lettering, or they'll chintz on the layout, or something like that. To really get someone's attention on Kickstarter and stand above the noise now, you want your book to look like that. You want your book to look like Bigfoot. You want to spend the time and the effort to put your best, absolute best out, even if it takes you a little longer to get your project done, to make sure that it is as good as you can possibly make it. And if it is, and it's of the highest quality as you can make it, it's got a more likely chance to be successful.
One of the things I would say is that, and I mentioned this earlier, is just finding your audience. Because sometimes, you know, sometimes it's hard to get, sometimes it is hard to get press, and if you can't get press, you know, like I had a difficult time when I started with Headlock, just because, you know, there were a history of really bad wrestling comics that WWE had put out that were not good, and people, you know, if people didn't understand wrestling, they would just be like, oh, nobody buys wrestling comics, but nobody buys awful wrestling comics. So, like, I built my own audience. Like, I spent 3 years just going to wrestling shows and setting up, and then, you know, doing Comic Cons and doing the circuit, and then sort of built my own grassroots audience until I felt like we were comfortable enough to be able to run the Kickstarters. And I incorporate my fans, like, you know, we have like drawing panels, and, you know, a lot of the wrestlers in the book are people that have supported us from the beginning, like we use their facial likenesses and stuff. But I mean, it's important to know where your audience is, you know, which, you know, like, and I know where the wrestling audience is because I've been a fan my whole life, but I mean, if you're writing horror, like, you know, hang out in, like, you know, on the horror sections, like message boards and Reddit and whatever, and find those people and engage with them, and not in a way that you're selling to them, but like understand your audience and what they want. And, you know, when you're a part of that community, I think that community will be more supportive to you. Like, I'd be nowhere if it wasn't for, you know, for the wrestling fans, because they helped me build this book. So I think that's a very important thing that people tend to overlook. You think, I'm just going to put it out there and people are going to love it, but I think you can really work to build your own audience, you know, and it's hustle, but it's totally worth it.
And along that lines, remember that when you're out trying to build that community and selling your project, you're also mainly selling yourself. Somebody's going to be more apt to want to support your project, not necessarily because of the project, but because they want to support you. Like, if you have the best looking project that you could possibly make, but you're, you know, a D-bag, then they're not going to want to support it. But if you're a cool guy, like everyone on this panel is, and you have something cool looking like Mike and Josh do, and so many of them do, then more people are going to be more likely to want to see you succeed and be willing to get behind it.
Josh, how do you market yours?
Well, I had a couple of ideas with mine because I knew right now, if you go out there, you look at the the convention floor, you see indie comics and they're all over the place. And it's like, how do you separate yourself from that? So with me, I knew I had 3 things going for me. It was a comic book, it was about Bigfoot, and the publishing name I chose was Brewhouse Comics. And so I'm a big craft beer fanatic. And so I actually incorporated that into my press release to a lot of sites like Comic Book Resources. They picked it up based on that. It was Kyle, who used to be on this, he was on the panel.
Yeah.
And I used that, and a lot of it goes with what we were saying about finding your audience. Also, that it's not just the comic book readership in a lot of the sites. You can go to wrestling sites. You can, solicit them with all the information there. With me, I went to a lot of cryptozoology sites because they were all Bigfoot fanatics, and they'd never seen a Bigfoot barbarian book before, and so they were more than happy to push that as well. And so you get a lot of press, taking it outside of just the comic book world as well. And know that your audience is much, you can go much, bigger than that. Because if you just stick to the comic books, you're also up against, Marvel, DC, the latest Image book. You're vying for that attention as well.
Alex, how do you decide what you're going to cover?
Stuff I like, and that speaks to doing your research and knowing what website or what blog or what media outlet you're reaching out to that's going to want to take a look at your product. We talked about some of the Kickstarter stuff. I usually don't cover that just because it's hard for me to dedicate the time to research and to see if I like it or not. But one thing that stood out was someone was doing a documentary on the Hammer horror movies that were produced by Warner Brothers, and that is just fascinating to me, and it's something we're both into. So that's something we could totally get behind and So I mean, someone who would read our websites and might see that pop up out of the norm, as opposed to like, oh, new Marvel movie, new DC movie, whatever. All of a sudden it's like some random Hammer horror post and they're talking about Christopher Lee and stuff like that. If someone following my site, they would see that as a recurring theme and say, well, this is the cat I want to reach out to. So I mean, doing your homework and finding out about which websites or whoever you want to talk to, seeing if that's something they'd be interested in and could totally get behind it would be a first step, I would think.
Tanya, how do you handle marketing?
And for me, a lot of my kind of to and fro, and I'm really big on social media. So, if you've got something that you want somebody to be aware of, the first thing that I would do is start following people that might be interested in your product. So look and see, do they blog about that? Do they put this particular subject up? If they do, start following them, retweet their stuff, comment on their stuff. You want to kind of build up a rapport. And don't just use Twitter or Instagram to just keep pumping out the same stuff. Try and be interactive as well. I'll have people that will start following me, and I do look through my followers and I'll quickly glance over it, and then I'll see something up, and then I'll comment on, oh, I really like your work. I'll put it out there. So it's all about building up that rapport, kind of trying to get to know the different people that are out there on social media. But at the same time, you want to build yourself up on social media as well. So like someone said before, you are the person, but you're also the business as well. So when you're tweeting or when you're putting stuff on Instagram, be aware that people are going to be looking at you and your product. So I'm always quite sensitive when it comes to I'm not really outspoken or anything like that. So just be careful of what you're putting out there and just try and be really interactive.
The stuff that I like to write about are things that I'm personally interested in. I've covered live events, documentaries, books, comics, things I get excited about. It's really fun to meet with the authors. I like a personal connection more than I like just getting a random email or something from somebody I don't know. So it's always better when I'm approached personally at an event or something, and somebody says, hey, I would love it if you would cover this. Real briefly, I want to touch on the Kickstarter panel that we're having. I actually am launching a Kickstarter in 3 weeks, so this is all very interesting to me. So I'm making mental notes here, and one of the things that I can tell you that we're doing for our movie is we made sure that the celebrities who are attached to it did a little 30-second snippet on their cell phone, just saying, hey, I'm attached to this thing, I want you guys to get behind it. And what that does is that gives us credibility so that when I send news stuff out, people don't say, yeah, right, they get to see from Jake the Snake Roberts or Tommy Dreamer or whatever that they are attached, they're excited, and that it's real, and it's going to happen whether we get the funds or not. So I hope that's helpful.
Does anyone out here have a project they're working on that they have any questions about? Yes.
I've got a story that I've written. I've paid for art. If I do a Kickstarter, I'm a special education teacher. So, how do I get the attention for my unique story?
What's your story about? Is there a genre to it?
A boy with autism is a paranormal superhero.
You go right to those sites. There's a million, autism sites. I'm sure there's a lot of high-profile people. I think that's really a good idea. That's fantastic. But I think there's definitely an audience there where special needs parents are talking. They want a superhero for one of their children. To get behind. I think that's a fantastic idea, and I think that's super easy to market. You just find those blogs and stuff, and I think you could do really.
And you're very authentic, you have authenticity about the story because.
I'm a teacher of kids with autism
Yes.
for 18 years.
So, but that for a news story is a great hook because it's authentic, that you actually know what you're writing about. So you have insights to it. So that's you should totally play up the fact. How long is it? Is it a one shot or?
It's meant to be a 5-chapter graphic novel.
So, yeah, I think that's your hook right now. You've lived in the world and you're telling a story about it that, autism, unfortunately, as you know, is very common. And a lot of people have to deal with this. And, people are looking for stories that help them get through this experience, as parents, as people around them. So, yeah.
In your particular case, you do have a lot of credibility because this is your field. And you're doing this story, you can probably pick up some local media almost immediately just in your community. Your local papers, local television, people who would be interested in this and would actually talk to you about this before you launch the Kickstarter. Then when you're ready to launch the Kickstarter, or you can tell them you're launching the Kickstarter in a week or 2 weeks or whatever. Then when you're trying to get coverage in the comic book press, you send things out, but you say, as covered by, this paper, this television station, add some credibility to it. If you copy down the video, if you can get a local television station and a crew out, and usually you can, especially if they're going to send it to your school and you're going to have the art and you're going to have kids that inspired you, you can really build this up to be a good 90-second, 60-second filler on any local news station. They'll come out, they'll film it, you can put it on YouTube, you can include that in your Kickstarter. There are things you can do that'll make this really pop.
Let me ask, I know we do this a lot on this panel, but how many people have a project that they want? Yeah. And how many people are just thinking about that project, or to get ready? So, because I'll say, the one word to me that I've seen is the most important, since this is now a Kickstarter panel, how to get attention for your Kickstarter, is community. And I saw, my website is now hosted on Hiveworks, which is a web publisher, and they publish a lot of web comics. And I see the cartoonists on there when they start their Kickstarter, and usually it's funded by the end of the first day. Because some of these are 5-figure Kickstarters, some of them are huge Kickstarters. Because they're a webcomic, they're come out regularly, and they already have a community that's built in that wants to see this book come out in print. And it's hard because I'm very sympathetic to people who have the one-off project that they want to do, or the one story they want to tell. That's really hard, to develop a community for that one story that you want to tell. But I have been working with some friends who are doing Kickstarters And the ones who serialized it on the web before are doing very well. The ones who sort of were just like, oh, by the way, I have a secret book that I've been working on all this time and now I'm kickstarting it. It's a little bit more of an uphill struggle for them, I think.
You also have to be prepared for the press. I mean, especially today. If you launch your comic, and this has happened more than once, you don't have a website, you don't have a Facebook page, you don't have a Twitter, you don't have some graphics on those items, you don't have a way for the fans who go to your site to order, you're in a wee bit of trouble. You just are, because once you get the attention, they're ready to go. They're ready. They were excited. They wanted to buy. They click on your page. Nothing's there. There's no way to buy. There's no way to order. There's no way to tell their retailer they want it. By the time you're ready for them, they've forgotten about you. It's an impulse buy for most people. You'll have a few people who are real excited about it, but that's not most people, and that's not where you're going to make your product sell. My son likes a comic called Anne Frankenstein, which it comes out very irregularly. But if you can't go to his website and order the comic after you hear about it, which you can't, you're going to say, well, that was interesting, I heard about that, and then that's it. You know, it was just something interesting you heard about. So you have to be prepared for them to come there. If you're going to do a Kickstarter, you have to be prepared to launch it approximately the time you're getting coverage. You have to be, you know, you don't want people to have to come back in a week and remember to come back in a week.
Another thing with your website, once it's started, it needs to constantly be updated. If someone goes on there and it says, oh look, the last entry was 2014, they think, oh, it's a dead site, this guy's done doing this project. So things constantly be updated with what's going on with the comic, or if you want anything related to, hey look, I got coverage on, go check us out on First Comics News or something like that, or hey look, I'll be working with Michael Kingston on this, or something like that. Just something to keep people going and going back and forth. And they see, like, once again, everyone has a short attention span now. So if they see something out within maybe, like a week maybe or so, then they're like, oh, well, it must have stopped. And then they forget. A lot of diminishing returns.
And you have to think there's so much attention now for people. There's so much content everywhere, and I mean there's so much stuff, free stuff on YouTube, and I mean, people can have a good time and not spend a dime. So I mean, if you're convincing somebody to part with their hard-earned money to support what you're doing, like it's got to be good, and it's got to be something you believe in, and you got to stick with it. You got to keep them what you got, and you got to keep them.
That's an opportunity too. Like if you know, whenever everybody's creative projects that hits snags. If you got a snag in the artwork or delay in the production or whatever, you can, it's so easy now, you know, with everybody has one of these, do a video, talk to your audience, like keep the conversation going. Just so long as you keep them engaged in what's going on, they'll stick with you if you've engaged with them well enough to begin with. But if you just drop off and disappear and then 6 months later come back and be like, hey guys, I'm back, they're like, who? What?
So here's a story that's kind of related to that. Is I had a problem with my printer. He printed all of my covers off center, and then he reprinted them, and then there was a snowstorm in Tennessee which shut the state down for like a month, or a week, I'm sorry. So like I was looking at like a month-long delay. So I ended up I drove to Nashville to get my books, and I live in upstate New York, so it ended up being 38 hours round trip. And I made like a whole thing out of it. I took pictures of my odometer, and like I brought, you know, and I put it on all my social media, and sort of took people on this journey with me. So it kept them engaged while I was not able to deliver what I said I was going to deliver 3 weeks earlier. So we were, you know, we made it like a fun little thing, and you know, people were, you know, I'm not advocating texting and driving, but people were like, you know, people were messaging me on social media, and I was interacting with them, and we turned it into like a big thing, and it ended up being like a fun thing for everybody. So there's ways that you can stay engaged, and just don't ever forget that, I guess.
I think the biggest thing that you were just describing is honesty. Like you were being very honest with the fans, and you were saying this is what's going on, and here you can see it, so they know that they can trust you, which is awesome. In doing research for the campaign we're doing, one of the guys I'm talking to is Neil Fisher, who he's done a lot of successful Kickstarters, and one in particular he asked for $30,000 and he got 1.3 million. So I kind of listened to what the guy tells me, and he told me that the initial launch needs to be like opening weekend of a movie at the movie theaters. So if there isn't an excitement and a buzz going for when you launch it and people jump into it, then the statistics are very bad that it's ever going to be successful. If you don't get, I think it's 1/3 of your campaign in the first day, it's not going to go. So it's very important to get a buzz, and I think honesty is a great way to go.
And also, not just being engaging online, but once you go to a convention like this or Comic-Con or wherever, like I've seen Josh, I've seen Michael over here, I've got to walk by the booths, they're always engaging with somebody. And you always got to do that, because I've seen before I walk by and somebody just sitting there drawing. Could be a great artist, but we're not going to see anything.
Or on their phone.
Or on their phone. And they're just saying like, hey, what's the comic? What? And then just walk away, because like, he doesn't care about his product, so why should I care about it as well? So make sure to also always be engaging when you're at a convention like this. I mean, it's great to get an idea, write it down, but remember, the person coming by doesn't care that you're hungover from the night before, how tired you are because you drove like 38 hours because you had to get to a convention to be here on time. So you always gotta know you gotta be awake. It's another job.
Our friend Glenn Human can't be with us today. He was originally scheduled to be here, and his company Comic Mix works with Indiegogo, which is the competition for Kickstarter. Tanya, you launched on Indiegogo. Can you tell us the difference between Indiegogo and Kickstarter and what that might be? Just the difference between why you would want to launch on Indiegogo instead of Kickstarter.
Actually, that wasn't such the best reason.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I did launch on Indiegogo, but the actual main reason is because I have a stage name and it wanted a legal name.
Oh, okay.
So asking me that question wasn't really.
Doesn't Indiegogo fund your project even if you don't hit 100% funding?
Yeah, sorry.
It has the option to. You don't have to, but.
Right.
Yeah, actually as well. So my project, I wasn't sure whether I was going to get it as well. And we didn't make the figure on the project, but we still got it funded. The difference being is that you can have the option, but it's a higher fee that you have to pay at the end. So you hand over more of your money to them.
Okay.
But it's still a way, if we hear about like different things like thousands of dollars and millions of dollars, and not everyone's going to get that amount funded. It might just be a few thousand that you're going to need.
There's a whole webpage dedicated to Kickstarters that have made zero. So. Sorry.
Yeah, I think with Kickstarter too, though, that's the best analogy I've heard. It's like the opening of a movie. There's just, because it's do or die.
Right.
There's an excitement about it, and once you get this ball rolling of this dialogue with your community, it's like everybody wants you to make it. I live in New York City, so I have very limited space. And I mean, I know a lot of people shop on Kickstarter, because to me it's always like, why are they funding it again? To me it's like, well, I guess I want that book, but some people just like getting the prints and the buttons and the postcards and the phone call that you get as rewards. I mean, there's fantastic rewards, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different reasons to fund these projects, and you got to make. But the excitement factor to me is something that really that I see in successful campaigns.
Does anyone have a non-Kickstarter question? Sorry, guys.
Oh, it's cool.
So I already published my, or got my first one printed, and I was wondering what steps I have to do beyond that to, for instance, for instance, like, do I need to send it to get reviews to social media? Is there any?
I'm sorry. What does this have to do with Kickstarter?
I got this.
Maybe he has.
This is Josh's wheelhouse.
Maybe he has an Indiegogo question or a GoFundMe question.
Okay, so
Wait, Josh?
Oh, I was
Wrong
gonna say,
Josh.
which job? Which?
So confusing.
I forgot the question. No. The first thing you do is write down everybody's name who's on this panel, because if you're going to get press coverage, one of the things you can do to them is to break the ice and say, hey, I attended the WonderCon panel in 2016 that you were on. I found a lot of great information. I waited 6 months because the book wasn't ready, or it's ready now. Would you like to take a look at it, or can you give me some advice as far as send it to one of your reviewers who will look at it? And that's what I did, and that's how I got, I met a lot of, reviewers for that reason. Another thing you can do is look at any indie comics book out there. Like, go to my site, bigfootcomic.com. We're always talking about who's reviewing it. And so then oh, this site, First Comics News, they love indie comics. They'll be more willing to look at my book than say one of the other sites out there.
and they're always pitching it. Hey, you can check it out here. You can check it out here. So those are the two biggest things you can do right off the bat.
One of the big things you can do too, go to Google, type in how to create a press release. Super easy, like it'll break it down for you exactly how to do a professional press release. Put some of yourself into it. Make it, if your comic is funny, make it, you know, a humorous press release, but make it professional and pay attention to the details. Spell check is a big one. You know, make sure that as much as you can do as just an individual, that you're trying to put your most professional foot forward, and it's going to ensure that you get paid attention to a lot more than somebody who just sends an email that's all in lowercase. It's like, hey, look at my comic, thanks, smiley face, you know.
I would even go a little bit further than that and put together a press kit, like get a synopsis together, let people know who you are, you know, your bio, etc. I mean, you want all that stuff handy in case someone wants to do a feature on you. So yeah, I would get a little press kit going.
And also try, if someone asks, like, they have something like really short sentence too, something, hey, it's just a synopsis really quick. You know, something like that to be able to go, otherwise, we just go, it's a thing about a guy who does this. It's like, then people are just kind of, just look the other way at the DC booth. So just kind of be like, all right, like I said, I saw the day, like our comic is 60s Batman camp meets 80s action movies. Something like that to draw them in. And then they'll go, oh, really? And then kind of give the whole shebang.
Try as much as you can to see the sites that you want to submit to, how they prefer to get the artwork, because the artwork is key. It's a visual medium, like Rick said. Some people prefer you put it in like a Dropbox, they can download it themselves. Some people prefer you just put it in a PDF and attach it. You know, try to make it as easy as possible, because for people who are reviewing on these sites, they get so inundated with emails that the more work they have to do to get to your product, the less likely they're going to be to do it.
I have, for anyone out there who has published a book, already has a physical book, at Publishers Weekly, there is a portal for self-published books to submit for review. And anyone out there can submit their book for review. Anyone. I think you do need to have an ISBN number though, so that's kind of the one little thing. Okay, but you probably should have one anyway. That's a number that enables you to sell your book through like Amazon or other places. The portal is called Book Life. Booklife, Book Life. So if you have a book and you'd like to submit it to Publishers Weekly, you go there, it explains how to do it. They do have a review committee, okay, so not everything gets reviewed, but once it passes the review committee, you know, it comes to me and I'll send it out for review and it will get reviewed like a regular book. So yeah, Book Life, use it, please.
What is your plan for distribution at this point?
Right now, I have a website, infiniteglorygn.com, and it's like the pre-release right now.
Okay.
But we're kind of just doing it one step at a time. Since this is my first book, we kind of learned as we went, and then we get to those steps, and then there's always something that kind of throws you the curveball, and then you're just like, oh, now I know how to do it, so then next time, maybe it'll be better.
Josh, how did you get your comic in comic stores?
Say that again?
How did you get your comic in the comic shops?
Well, first I went to I went to different sites like Sam Humphries. He has a list of stores that he went to, and you know those stores are indie-friendly stores. And then it was just a matter of looking up looking up their website, getting their email address, and emailing them. I'm horrible at talking to people on the phone, so a lot of the success I've had has always been via email. It lets me edit it, shorten it, do that. And you can always follow up with them, because a lot of times they're bombarded with, and this goes for press coverage as well. If you send them something and you don't hear anything back, give it a week, give it 2 weeks at the most, and then just say, hey, I'm following up. So those are the two best things. Because, like I said, any indie comics person out there will always tell you where you can find their book, what stores are carrying it, what sites have reviewed it. So any of them will always have such great information that you can find.
I have a follow-up question for you, Josh. How did you go from publishing it independently and getting it into stores to working with Action Lab?
I actually, at the first WonderCon, I actually attended, selling the book. I had 2 issues out, and I tabled next to Dave Dwanch and Jason Martin, who were, at the time Action Lab was, I think they had been going for about 2 or 3 years at the time. And so I knew them from there, but I didn't pitch them the book. I was, bent on, doing it myself. Once I had had all 6 issues out, I ran into Jason Martin, in Rose City Comic Con. And he was like, hey, did you ever pitch this book to us? And I'm like, no, I never did. And so I just followed up through them there. And as a result, that's when they started, publishing the book. But one of the things about Action Lab is they're hungry for new creators as well. And they have a very easy process. Submissions, I think it's like submissions at Action Lab, something like, it's on their website. And I've met so many people who have just sent their book blindly to them. They reviewed it and they said, hey, this is something we want to publish.
They will now be inundated with. Anyone else have, yes?
Yeah, I'm a director and I have a comic-related short film that's going to film festivals. And one of the press kits requirements is, press. So, and it's not available online yet, so would you think that'd be just fine to be hitting up some of you guys and be like, hey, here's my projects already on.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. Just send a private link and just ask us how much we can share as far as spoilers and whatever. And I don't think that's. I think that's exactly what you should do.
Yes.
Thank you.
I got a question, but it's kind of for the other side of the business, I guess. I'm starting up a podcast and a website with a friend. I was wondering if you have any suggestions from the very start, like things to look for, how to make connections and do reviews and things.
Well, interview Michael and Josh about their comics would be a start. They actually have readers who are reading their comics who might actually listen to your podcast initially just by hearing about it on theirs. When you're downstairs, talk to the people, set up the guests that you have on your podcast will bring listeners to your podcast.
Yeah. That and consistency. As long as you keep going on a consistent rate, because on the publicist angle, we'll look at what the podcaster or media outlet is doing, and if it's inconsistent or they're not updating, I won't put a client on there. So consistency is key.
I have two things to say in relation to podcasts. I have a podcast, and one of the things I want to tell you is it's okay to go after genre audiences. I have a lot of connections in horror and pro wrestling. I thought that the biggest guest I would have had on there was Rob Van Dam, because he's Rob Van Dam. But who doesn't know Rob Van Dam, right? The whole effing show. Okay, I guess not. Perhaps that's why I was wrong. Anyway, my point is, I had a horror icon, this girl, Victoria DeMar, who's done a lot of movies for Full Moon. They both tied in numbers on the podcast. They are the most, to date, they are the most downloaded episodes. And I never would have guessed that in a million years. I thought she's just, like a little wannabe Elvira, and he's like former WWE champion. So it's okay to go after genre, like NASCAR drivers or a great bowler. That's perfectly fine for viewers.
You had a question?
Yes. Do you think that if you're publishing a comic, is it because my collaborator and I are working on a comic right now, and we're debating whether or not we're going to publish it just as a volume graphic novel, like 4 volumes of it, or break it down and publish them as individual comics. Which one do you think is a better way to go in terms of getting better readership?
I would try to get it on the web first. Seriously, just do the first issue, launch as a webcomic. I honestly, I feel like that is how people get attention now, and just having it for free sampling. And I would love to hear the rest of the panel, but I feel like the webcomic to graphic novel is a pretty solid path for that kind of project.
One of the things you want to consider is if you print single issues, my experience, I guess, when I started, I don't print single issues anymore, was that people would either buy issue 1 or they'd buy everything. And then you're stuck with 2, 3, and 4, and then you can't sell 2, 3, and 4 without issue 1. So I think graphic novels are an easier sell, but they're obviously a higher expense, and that's something that you have to balance. But starting on the web and building an audience and then going to a Kickstarter type thing to do a graphic novel, once you have that audience, it's probably the safest bet, I think.
And print is expensive, so watch out if you're doing, however many issues of it. If you keep going back and printing more, they bought issue number 1, now okay, now I'm going to a convention, I need to buy more of issue number 1, now issue number 2. Whereas if you have a graphic novel, you'll get a lot of people just buying that one graphic novel, and as a result, your cost might be, less because of that, for that reason.
And you want to be a little creative, think outside of the box too. Like if you decide to put your individual issues online, it's a good way to build an audience and get people familiar with your material and build a fan base that way. But then you go, well, if I give it to them online for free, why are they going to buy the graphic novel? Put extra stuff in the graphic novel that they can't get online. Put incentives in there. if you have pinups by certain guest artists, or if you have a short, like 5-page story that is only available in the graphic novel, it's kind of like, not circling back to Kickstarter, but with the Kickstarter rewards, like, you want to come up with unique things that people can't get just by buying the single issue comic. They have to go through this way to get the whole thing.
Yes.
A few people listed their websites. Can they go through the list? How to contact?
Yeah, I'm on First Comics News.
Bigfootcomic.com, and my email, anybody can email me, it's brewhousecomics@gmail.com. I'm more than happy to, if you have like press, information, like just questions like, hey, how do I even write a, press release? Anything like that, you can just email me.
My site is comicsbeat.com, comicsbeat.com, and my email's on there. It's comicsbeat@gmail.com. I get a lot of email though, so please, I can't read it all. So.
I'm at HollywoodGoneGeek.com.
Hollywood Gone?
GONE.
And I'm just at lottatanya.com, but I'm also on social media as well, at Tanya Tate on Instagram and Twitter, and Real Tanya Tate on Facebook.
You can find me on First Comics News, Tim Chismar. You can find me on Twitter, Chismar Tim, and right now I'm promoting the movie, so Church Movie, it's at Church Movie. One thing I want to say real quick before I let it continue. I want to encourage you guys to know that you're not bothering the press. When you want to promote your comic book or your short film or whatever it is, they're looking for content. Last year at WonderCon, I approached, they were doing a live remote from KFI and Mo Kelly. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Mo Kelly show, but it's very popular. It's a big AM station. They were doing a live remote, and I approached him. Out of the blue, no press release, no nothing. And I talked to his segment manager, and a week later I was on the show. And they gave me 10 minutes, and it was so fascinating, it continued for an hour. I had 1 hour on his show talking about my project, and we gave away things, and it was amazing, and the clip's on YouTube. And so I approached him out of the blue. So I'm saying you can do that, and you're not bugging them. They need content anyway, so.
All of my social media and stuff is all Headlocked Comic. It's one word. I mean, obviously I'm not a press dude, but I've run Kickstarters pretty successfully, and you can find me on Facebook under my real name, which is Michael Kingston, and I'll give anybody advice. I don't care. I feel like I was on that side of the table one time, and, I've made every mistake you can possibly think of, so, you know what I mean? Like, stand on my shoulders by all means, and don't do all the dumb stuff I did.
You can find me on First Comics News, but also my queen for press is francisskypress@gmail.com. And also you can check out for anything on social media like Facebook, Instagram, The Massacre Twins, also themassacretwins.com for anything regarding the webcomic.
We've talked a lot about what to do. I'm going to tell you what not to do. Don't be like me and not have a website. Be the only person on this panel without a website. Don't have all your social media stuff have some cute tomatoes. Don't have all your social media handles be some cutesy nickname that's not your actual name or the name of your project, like all of mine are. If you want to get in touch, I'm on Facebook. I'm on First Comics News, Joshua Waldrop. You can find me on anything. Best for email is red, R-E-D, gorilla, G-U, how do you spell gorilla? E-R-R-I-L-L-A @hotmail.com.
Just a small piece of advice, know how to spell your website, know the name of your company. If you don't, maybe you should have been Red Egg.
Yeah, that's what
Spell check.
Also, like, quick word is also just when you go out and do this, like, don't get intimidated, don't be afraid. Worst people can say is no, and just move on and find somebody else. Because especially coming here or Comic-Con or something like that, you're gonna be dealing with you're gonna be going against a lot of big like companies, not even just DC, Marvel, like even like NBC, things like that. People are gonna be trying to be towards that like a moth to the light. So make sure to try and talk to them and just don't be afraid to do it.
And on that note, if you don't hear back from the site, you submit to some sites you don't hear back, or you talk to somebody you don't hear back, don't take it personally. There's just so much going on in the ether that like sometimes stuff gets lost. Keep plugging away. It's not a commentary on the quality of your project or a personal thing against you. Keep the confidence in what you're doing and just keep going.
Honestly, on the beat, on my website, we like to support indie projects.
Yeah.
That more so than anything else, because everyone in the world covers what's going on in DC and Marvel. You have to, you know what I mean? It's what's going on in indie projects. It's our support for that. It's our love of that makes our sites different. And it's that type of love that we have for comics that we want to share, and that's why we do it. We don't do it because, you know, we have to. This is a love. This is a joy. And we want to share that joy with people. So you've got to share your excitement with us, and we want to share that excitement with our readers. They gave us a 5-minute warning, I think.
I'm going to reiterate one thing that was said several times in the panel, once again, but it's like if you read a site regularly because you feel connection with it, you know, tailor your pitch to that site, you know, and like showing that, because I've had a few people who are like, you know, I'm a regular reader of The Beat, all right, I've heard that a lot of times, and then they make some comment about, I really loved your piece on blah blah, and then I'm like, oh my heart, you know, because I really did read my website, and you know, do your homework on that, and then that shows that you connected, you know, I mean, whether it's my site or anybody's site, shows that when you have a connection, you know, again, community, and that will really help establish a relationship that will bear fruit.
Just be professional in everything that you do too. Everything that you do represents yourself. Everything that you type to somebody, every personal interaction you have in a show. Like, I've had people come up to me and ask me for advice on how to break in or how to do whatever. And I mean, I'm there obviously trying to, you know, sell my wares, and they dump their stuff on the table and knock my stuff over, and they're like, look at my stuff. I mean, just be respectful, like, and just think about it as a job interview, like everything like that you would do if you were going for like a regular job. I'm not saying you have to wear a tie, but you know, just be cool.
And then also don't be suck-uppy. Like, I'm thinking the exact opposite I run into a lot. Like, I'm putting together this movie right now, so now all my best friends in Hollywood are actors and actresses. So, you know, don't be super suck-uppy. Try to be genuine and authentic. You know, just be a cool dude, you know, or dudette, and it'll work out for you. But you know, don't push it. You know.
How much time we got left?
1 minute.
We've got 1 minute. If anyone has a 30-second question, we'll give you a 30-second answer. Anyone?
Time's ticking.
Come on!
Oh, no,
Yes.
30 seconds.
How important is it that we involve a publicist to help reach out to people if you're not really good at limiting yourself?
This would have been a great question for Glenn.
This would have been a great question, because that's what Glenn does.
Yeah.
Is Comics Mix has their own service, Comic Mix Pro, I believe it is. Or yeah, and you can hire them, and they will do that for you. And Glenn likes to promote that when he's here. If you just have to have someone who's dedicating the time to it. Your project isn't so huge that it needs a full staff, but you do have to reach out to a lot of different people with the same message, basically, and you got to keep track of who you've talked to and where you are with all of it. But you know, an Excel spreadsheet will cover you.
The best thing is, you know, how do I make a small fortune in comics? Start with a large fortune.
Yes.
Stay in your budget. Okay, a publicist can really help if you hire the best. They're really expensive. Okay, so just stay within your budget. There's a lot you can do with the Excel spreadsheet yourself.
And make relationships. You know, maybe you meet somebody who is really good at publicity and really good at PR, but has always wanted to make a story or make something, doesn't know how, and you can help them with that. They can help you. Like it's you know, scratch my back, I scratch yours type of thing. Those kind of partnerships work out a lot of the time.
It's a social business more than anything else.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming.